you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, this is Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com, thechrisvossshow.com. Welcome to the big show, my family and friends. 14 years, 1,400 episodes. I think we're getting to be one of those longest running podcasts ever. We came back from the day when, the only way we did the podcast was we lit a little fire and then we scraped some wood together, or maybe that's how we created the fire. I never have gotten that straight, which is clearly why the fire department says I can't burn things anymore in the barbecue. But that's how we used to communicate. We just send smoke signals, and that was the Chris Voss podcast 14 years ago. We just put them up in the air, and people would be like, hey, look what that dude's saying over there. That's not what we did. You know that. Anyway, guys, the greatest podcast in the world for the greatest audience in the world. You guys are wonderful, and we certainly appreciate you guys, because without you guys, we'd just be sitting here talking to ourselves, which is mostly what I do in the rubber room when they don't put me on the show. They just put me in the back there, put the old circular vest on me, and they just let me talk to myself in the corner, which is, probably more appropriate than letting me loose on the public. But this is the free time that I get to come out and do it. So be sure for the show. This is how we set up the plugs every time with the ramble. Be sure to refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Guilt them into joining the show, subscribing. Go to youtube.com/Chris Voss, goodreads.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss. If you haven't subscribed to the big 130,000 LinkedIn group over there, the big LinkedIn newsletter, holy crap, that thing jumped by another 500 people this week. I think it's up to almost 6,000 or something, and we've just been doing it for a short while. So really smart people over there on LinkedIn, and successful people. One of them is not me, but the rest of the people are. And we're also on TikTok. We're trying to be cool, so go over there. We had an amazing gentleman on the show. He's going to be talking to us about his entrepreneurial journey, about the companies he built, and everything he did. We're going to be talking about Advanced Glazings Ltd., and it was founded in 1995 by Dr. Douglas Milburn to develop, manufacture, and market sustainable and commercially viable technologies related to sunlight. Sunlight's one of my favorite things. I'm into that sunlight stuff because it's good for your vitamin D. I should tell people about the journey we're doing lately, but I'll get around to that on different podcasts. Doug Milburn is a longtime entrepreneur and innovator. He thrives on solving problems, and for 35 years, he has brought his vision and passion to manufacturing, engineering, software development, and process engineering. Throughout his leadership, he has aimed to create great workspaces by shaping a company's success through corporate values and ethical guidelines. He was born and raised in Nova Scotia, Canada, and he's earned his undergraduate and master's degree in physics at Mount Allison University before finishing his studies with a PhD in mechanical engineering at the University of Waterloo. In 1985, he and his wife co-founded Advanced Glazings, which develops and manufactures Solera light diffusing glass, which enables architects to create beautifully daylighted buildings that are incredibly energy efficient, and they have efficiency. So there you go. I flunked second grade. In 2001, he co-founded Protocase with Steve Lilly. Protocase helps engineers, innovators, and scientists accelerate their project timelines by manufacturing custom metal enclosures and parts in 2 to 3 days with no minimum order requirements. And he took Lilly and Dr. Milburn took the entrepreneurial leap once more in 2014 with the start of 45 Drives, a new enterprise company. 45 Drives helps companies manage and scale their data storage needs with ultra-large storage servers and clusters that are powerful, flexible, and affordable. Welcome to the show, Doug. How are you?
Thank you very much, Chris. You know what? I was feeling a lot younger. They said 35 years, and I'm going, it's probably a young entrepreneur, eh? And not anymore. Oh.
It's kind of an interesting journey to look back on, though, isn't it?
It absolutely is. Lots of stuff to do with all three companies, just, really in growth mode. So it's a really dull moment, but every now and then, it's advice I got from my late father. He said every now and then, show up on the weekend and he'd pour me a glass of rum at the cottage, and I'd be talking about all the problems going, hey, sis, do you ever sit back and look at what you've already done? And I said, no, not really. So anyway, good thing to do, though.
Yeah, might be good for a book. You should put a book down.
My memoirs, I keep talking about them, but someday.
Yeah, it's hard to get the time for them. COVID was like a great time for stuff like that. So, Doug, give us the .coms where people can find you and stuff about your company on the web.
Sure. Hoping today we'll talk lots about Advanced Glazings Limited. It's advancedglazings.com. Okay, glazings.com. And you'll find about how to create better buildings with natural light in them on there. Protocase, we're infrastructure for people in engineering and science and innovation who need to get their ideas turned into reality very, very quickly. Protocase.com.
There you go.
Is the .com for that. And 45drives.com for enterprise storage servers and new enterprise model, open source, open platform.
There you go. Now, let's tell you a little bit to the audience. Tell us a little bit about your origin story. What got you into entrepreneurism, building companies, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, sure. I grew up in a small town in Nova Scotia, and I don't know, kind of an eclectic person, I'd say. I did all kinds of sports, music, and academics. I wasn't a studier, but I was good at science and math and stuff, and I liked it because I didn't have to do any work on it. And kind of drifted my way, having fun, enjoying life. Got to university, loved it in university, and I loved, I loved the academics. I got into physics. That was my place I went. I played rugby in university. Great fun. I enjoyed it so much that I did a second degree. I graduated. I said, do I have to work? And I said, I can keep doing this. So I did a master's. Did my master's. I actually did it in some chemical physics. It's called laser spectroscopy. Whole other story. Yeah, it was cool. Made extreme ultraviolet laser light and studied super cool, simple diatomic gas molecules.
There you go. So, and then where did you go from there?
Well, you know what? It was a formative experience. I loved the research I was doing. I loved playing around. I loved the university environment. Went off to my first conference, and there's 3 people. It was the Canadian Association of Physicists conference, and there's 3 people in the whole conference that were really interested in the work I did. It was so specialized, so obscure. Great work. Love pure science, but it was just a little too off on my own. I just had a little bit too much social in me, I think. So I decided to go off and study with a guy at University of Waterloo who was a pioneer in solar energy. Back when solar energy wasn't popular. I think all the cool kids go into solar energy now, but not when I was there.
Yeah.
It's like swimming against the current. So I did my PhD in solar thermal energy with a guy named Terry Hollins, who's a pioneer in it.
There you go. So how does that lead you into Advanced Glazings?
Well, so Waterloo is kind of, I don't know, maybe some people listening know University of Waterloo. It's sort of Canada's MIT, maybe you'd call it. It's math, science dominant, and no disrespect to my friends who are in liberal arts there or whatever else, but really known for that. And it's a place it's Canada's place of spin-off companies. RIM and BlackBerry came out of there as one example.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and there's hundreds and hundreds of companies come out of there. So it was a spin-off environment. And I think in entrepreneurship, it's kind of like a genetic disease. I think, people that are entrepreneurs, you just have to do it. And I finished my PhD, and I actually had a job offer. One of my external examiner committee, and you do this PhD defense. One of my guys, my examiners, actually University of Chicago prof, he had a startup going, and he offered me a job, which would have been a dream job. But I had this technology in our lab that I was looking at and going, somebody could do something with that. And it was called honeycomb transparent insulation. It's the roots of our product, our Solera product, Advanced Glazings. And I just looked at it and I said, I just have to tackle that. So I skipped all the sort of normal career and working stuff and jumped right into entrepreneurship, for better or for worse. Well, it's been good. It turned out good.
It turned out good. Turned out good. And it sounds like you hit on your first try, though, right?
Well, it was a long run. the way I did it, I'm sure, so it started in, it was 95, 96 when we started, and we had a very raw technology in the lab, and we had to make this material before we could really prove it in application. And it took years to figure out how to manufacture it. There's big materials research problems. So I ended up, on a shoestring, managed to get money between, research funding and equity investment and everything else. And in a way now, the whole venture capital world is so evolved now. And it really wasn't back then.
Yeah, back then.
So as pioneer, the pioneer with the arrows in the back, it was long, slow, hard, went a lot slower than it should have, but we got a product developed, and we were originally going to use this material as an insulation for commercial greenhouses.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and a commercial greenhouse, energy is the biggest bill. Heating is the biggest bill you write out as call it northern latitudes. Let's say, if you're in middle U.S. north or in Europe, northern Europe or whatever else, right? And it's and these huge buildings that are unheated, and and your dollars per square foot you get out of growing tomatoes or flowers is not that big. So the natural gas or bunker oil bill that you have in a 10-acre greenhouse is pretty ugly, and we could save 75% on their heating bill.
Wow, that's quite significant.
So we did some test projects, and we even found that plants grew better inside because of the way it diffused light. So, but we just there's a little glitch in feedstock material that we had to solve, and we had people knocking on our door, from the building industry. And where they had issues, the problems that we solve now were brought to us from the industry, and we ended up doing a pivot. And I don't know, but it probably would have been a lot faster in the greenhouse industry. It turned out there's a lot I didn't know about the building industry, but the problem that they had was a fundamental problem that it's real and needed to be addressed. It's something people just live with in buildings. And as I said, the rest is history. We're we got about 2,000 architectural projects up now with our material, so pretty mature company. And it's one of these things that, as I said, I was ahead of my time. The solar energy and natural lighting kids weren't cool back then, and it's now the coolest thing in the block. So all of a sudden we got these tailwinds behind us, and it's just really, really fascinating. And we're sort of a startup because we never really grew it. I went and spent my time on the other businesses, and it incubated, and we got better and better. The product got more and more mature, got better at helping people design buildings. And so we're just, it's a really, really cool time for us right now.
There you go. So explain, you guys build something you call the impact engineered daylight diffusers. We'll get into some of the product names, but what does that mean? What is for the layman out there or person who doesn't understand what diffusers are? What is that and how does it work?
Yeah, so light diffusion. So okay, so here's the problem. I'm going to go just back a step on that. So you think about buildings, right? And and again, a lot of science and engineering sort of put forward as gobbledygook with guys in white coats, and you're supposed to be really smart to understand it. I just don't believe that's true, right? So you look at buildings. Let me get two bookends here for us. Walk into a Walmart, Costco, whatever, big box store. You got no windows other than a little bit of glass in the doors, right? Again, inside there, it's all artificial lighting, and we call them dark boxes. They're just not very, and they're quite adequate because the paying customers come in and leave, so it's not that big a deal, right? But if you have to work there, it's a miserable place to work. They're just not nice buildings to be in.
Yeah.
Cost effective, but miserable. The other bookend on the other side, you go downtown, a big city, and you see the all glass towers, and they look great. Go by at night. That looks cool. You see the bones of the building inside there and all the life in it and everything else. And they look cool. You got all this view from inside, but they're not necessarily nice buildings to be in either, because it's either a solar oven or you darken the glass down so much that it looks like it's like late November.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is gloomy if you're on the inside. You're like, this is,
absolutely gloomy, excessively tinted glass. It actually, studies show that it makes people depressed.
Wow.
It's not good. Well, it's same as People living way up in northern latitudes who have these 6-month winters, they don't see the sun. It's basically the same thing. So anyway, there's this happy place. To make a great building, you got to connect to the outdoors. You need view, okay, and you need daylight. And the problem with glass as a material, it's great for view, but when that sun is beating down in one direction, it does nothing for you, and you end up with glare. And people go, damn, it's too hot. Oh, let me get some window tinting, or let me put blinds down. The study that National Research Council of Canada did on commercial buildings, it said 65% of all window areas in commercial buildings were permanently occluded by blinds. So it
kind of defeats the whole purpose.
Yeah, somebody talked you into spending all that money on glass. You're paying for your heating bill because glass doesn't insulate. Well, other glass doesn't. Ours does. Other glass doesn't insulate well. And but you got to protect yourself. So this happy space in the middle. What we do is help people make that connection, help you design buildings. If you use our light diffusing glass, so when you use it with vision glass, it doesn't replace it. Okay, it might replace wall. And it's translucent. You can't see through it. You get privacy, but it takes that direct beam sunlight, converts it into soft, gentle daylight, and pushes it out into the space, up onto the ceiling, out into the walls, rather than just coming down and overheating, hitting the floor and overheating the zone in the side. So it controls glare, backlights everything. So it creates great lighting patterns for you. It makes buildings that are just beautiful to be in.
Wow. And I mean, beauty of a building and, the whole atmosphere makes all the difference to employees that work there and people that work there. I mean, you feel better when you're in that space. There's more feng shui. Is that what it is? I mean, you just feel better about the whole thing, especially if you have light,
It's, look, getting down to the thing of being in a daylight building. I'm sitting here in a daylighted building. I don't have the lights off in the office here, on the office here.
Oh, wow.
And I'm building envelope up there is translucent envelope, and I have vision glass and I got view in front of me. I go back to my PhD in solar energy. A little bit of a paradoxical. The solar energy lab I was in at University of Waterloo used to be a combustion lab that was built for. So it was all brick walls, because they said if we ever blow anything up, we can't have windows shattering on the poor students walking by.
Yeah.
Nice thing to be in a lab like that. But anyway, so I go in there, I get in there 8:30 in the morning, in the wintertime in Ontario, Canada. It's, it's just light. You might have had an hour of light at that time. And you walk in there, and I'd usually be in there at 6 or 7 in the evening, and it's getting dark at 4:30. So I see a half hour of light. You get disconnected, fluorescent lights back then, it's LED, it's a little bit better, but it's still artificial light. You get disconnected from the world. And now, I sit here and I live under natural light. There's study upon study that shows people are healthier, happier. They buy more in retail stores. They're more productive in office and blue collar situations. Hospitals, people heal better. And that's a study. But, as I sit here at my own personal experience, you're in here and I just feel that, year round, the connection, you feel the sun early in the day. It's got different character. It's got a different spectrum, different direction. It changes through the day. You get the intensity changes, the color changes. You just live with it. It's just great. It's the way we humans were meant to be. Not dark boxes or caves,
I mean, we were, for eons of time, we lived out in the sun. We tilled fields, chased buffalo, whatever, we were doing the hunter gatherer thing. And it's only been a very small select period of our history that we've, let's put ourselves in glass buildings, eh? And I think sometimes our bodies are just not quite retrofitted for it very well. I just started a weird thing. I don't know if it's a weird thing, but I call it my morning centering procedure. And I've been seeing all these people talk about how vitamin D from the sun is really important. And it's also important for starting your, what the hell is it called? It's the, it's a cycle in your body of melatonin and different things that starts a cycle of where you can sleep, because it'll help you sleep better, because it tells your body, hey, here's the start of my day. And so I just started doing a thing 4 days ago where every morning when I go have my coffee, the first thing I do is I go sit in the sun for 15 minutes to get my natural vitamin D. And I probably suffered some depression over the years and different things by not taking enough vitamin D. And so I'm trying it, and I'm not sure if the results are psychosomatic at this point, but I'm really enjoying it and I feel better. And so just having that light makes all the difference in the world, because I spend most of my time indoors in a rubber room, like I mentioned before, tied up in a corner talking to myself. So,
like, I totally agree. My house, I got a nice sunroom in the back end of my house. It faces east. I get morning sun. I come to work. I go through the full cycle of sun, and and vitamin D is one aspect of it. There's our whole physiology is built around that. It's built about ramping up in the daytime, and ramping down. Pineal gland, your whole hormone system. It's
really,
all,
wow.
Oh yeah, and it's all, it's the light level, and it's also the spectrum of light. The light is reddish, much more red. It's going down the atmosphere. You see sunset is red, the light that comes through. The blue light gets scattered out of it. So when the sun's coming straight down overhead, we're getting much bluer light. And then morning and evening, it's much redder light. Our whole body's tuned to that. We got to go through these cycles. We have to sleep as humans, and we need to be awake when we're awake. And going through those natural rhythms, our whole physiology is tied to it. And our whole well-being, and it's really amazing. I look at it, it's subjective, but I know I feel different in naturally lighted buildings, and I know at times when I'll go somewhere and I'll be in a regular building that's got a little window or the blind shut or not seeing the sun, it just feel different. I get out of touch, and I count myself as lucky to be in a building that's fully naturally lighted. But anyway, incredibly important to us.
Yeah, definitely. Circadian rhythms. That's the thing I was thinking of. Now, you guys have two, I guess, major products that you guys have on your website. You have what's called the Solera and the Solera Wall. Tell us about those.
Sure. So building a great building that has that connection, it's about mixing light diffusing and view glazings on your building. Right proportions, right placement, right design of the spaces. So you got to get right back into the architectural side of it to do that. So, and we've gained actually 2,000 projects worth of expertise on doing that. So when you figure that out, you figure out where you want opaque, where you want translucent, where you want vision. You figure that out. Then, like, you're bound by practicalities, right? And I mean, one of the reasons we think about buildings the way we do is because we've had two materials classes. We've had opaque. We've had transparent. Glass actually goes back to Roman times. They invented window glass back that long ago. So, we cut holes. We, use stone or wood or whatever else, cut holes in it, put a window in it, it just didn't, it got our species here, right? It got us through that first part.
For what it's worth, I've seen us lately.
But Good point. So anyway, you move ahead, you move to this new paradigm, you understand how to build an envelope, but you got the practicalities you got to face. So that glass has to get on a building. So most of the buildings in the world use either window systems that punched openings, and it's called window systems on it. The other big category of framing is, it's framing we use in conventional glass. Big type of framing that we use is called curtain wall. So if you look at a building downtown and it's an all glass building or big sections of glass, it's almost certain that's curtain wall that we're using. And what we do, and that's an industry, it's been around for forever. Modern curtain wall evolved, going back 50, 75 years, in its roots. It's mature. There's contracting. It's a huge industry. It's, $40 billion a year in North America or something like that. So our first product that came out is called Solera, and it's most of what we sell today. Solera is glass units, so it's got two pieces of glass. It's got all our magic light diffusers and insulation. We'll talk about insulation in a bit. It's got that inside it, and these sealed units come and they go into curtain wall.
Wow!
Okay? So that's the Solera product, and we custom configure it. So we'll design a building, look at what direction it's facing, look at how much glass we have on it, how big the space is, how light the finishes are inside. Lighter the finishes, the more light bounces around, and we tune it in and we configure the glass to be just right for that application. And then, the architects have, along with the engineers, have figured out how they're going to build the building envelope. And it's, curtain wall is the majority of what we do. And Solera goes in window systems, curtain wall. There's another thing called storefront it goes into. And it's all designed to be compatible. So it's completely seamless to get this stuff onto a building, going through a building design process and get it built.
And you mentioned insulation, I think. And how does that work?
So insulation, walls can have great insulation. Typically, once upon a time, southern climates didn't bother insulating very much, which is a little bit of a mistake because you come in to get out of the heat. If you're in Houston, Texas in the summertime, if you're in, I don't know, if you're in Chicago, you come to get out of the cold, but you have to deal with both. Insulation helps you deal with that. And so great buildings are thermally comfortable. And if you have poor insulation, they're not that comfortable. So you need insulation in buildings. Glass. So you build walls today, and you can build typical houses that they build in middle to northern latitudes might have a 2x6 walls. Build them out of 2x6s. Put fiberglass in that. That's about R18 insulation. Okay? The glass you buy for your window, probably R3. Might even be R2 if you're in Florida in the old paradigm. Might be R2. Single glass is R1. It's got no insulation, right? So we make glass, and we can go from R3, and we can configure the glass depending on what customer wants, what they're trying to achieve. We can go all the way up to R25. So it's best insulating glass in existence. So what you do and you can do that separately. We can tune the light properties when we build the glass to get the lighting you want. And then you can choose, fairly independently of that, you can choose what insulation you want. And if you're trying to build a building that is, say, net zero energy usage, you might go up to R25. If you're trying to leadership in energy efficient design, if you want certification, you're building green certification, you may go up to the top end. Another end, we actually have another company. We have one of our manufacturing plants. We use R3 in it. Why? Because it's got a bunch of manufacturing process in there that dumps extra heat into the building. So we don't need thermal insulation. So there's no point in it. So yeah, you can get what you want. You don't have to pay for it if you don't want it. But if you do want it, you can get the best in the world.
There you go.
And it's really, the other thing that's happened, as we talk about new buildings, building codes. The other thing when you build a building, you got to meet code for better or for worse. I mean, overall, the intention is to get you better buildings, right? And it's get a base standard, but it gets pretty restrictive. Interesting things happen just the last few years. There's an engineering standard called ASHRAE 90.1. That's the air conditioning and heating engineers. So they put together standards for building envelope insulation. So, but what it means is to strictly follow the code. You can only put 30% window area on your building. The other 70% has to be wall. So effectively, and most places are adopting this into their building code. So what it means is you can no longer build an all glass building, and you get some pretty dull looking buildings when you get down to that. But what it means with us, with R25, is it means you can totally build an all glass building at that point.
Wow. Now you guys, with the Solera wall, you have what's called a cladding system. What is a cladding system? I'm going to learn something new today.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and it's interesting, a fundamental problem, and you dig into it, you get all these other problems you have to solve. So there's a whole category of buildings, metal buildings we use for it. Factories, the other big box stores kind of fall under metal, generally under metal building, and the like. Steel structure, cladding over them, and they're often they're built to a lower price point than your downtown building or your corporate head office. But that whole world has been climbing upstream and making nicer looking. The old ones, go back 30 years ago, it was all, Butler building. Butler makes great steel buildings, a lot of corrugated, then it was corrugated steel, bag insulation inside, rough and ready industrial buildings. Well, that whole world is climbing the food chain in a huge way. And we got something called insulated metal panels now that they use to clad. A bunch of other ways you can do it, but insulated metal panel is a really cool way to do it. Great insulation, look way better, really fast to build. If you try to break into a glass system as you start building up, build a wall in the bottom, the top, and then try to put a strip of glass in it, go into curtain wall or something, it breaks all the elegance and all the fast building and the whole cost paradigm. It's just way more expensive. So we developed something, it's called Solera Wall, and inspired by that, and it is glass in a panel system. So the glass does not require framing, and they come on as panels. There's a little strip, aluminum strips go on underneath it, and you basically it tongue and grooves into insulated metal panels or any adapter strip into any other construction you want. Tongue and groove the panel in, toggle bolts in the side, next panel tongue and grooves in directly over primary steel structure. Or we got our other structure. Actually got a building in Montreal, Canada, that's going up in an engineered timber frame, like a large town hall library building that's going up. So it goes over any primary structure, and it's just tongue and grooves without framing. Leave the cost, leave that thermal break. Framing goes from the outside, the inside conducts your heat out to the outdoors or in from the outdoors.
Wow.
And takes way longer to build, way more labor. So this stuff is lower overall installed cost. So you can put glass into buildings. Looks great too. It's absolutely trim. You don't have all this ugly framing sticking out from the inside and the outside, and it's just this flush wall of glass. Lean, trim, Scandinavian look, minimalist look to it. So whole other direction that we have.
There you go. So you work on a lot of new buildings. We talked before the show in the green room. There's Los Angeles downtown and San Francisco downtown, and I'm not sure about the other cities in America, but I imagine they're suffering as well. COVID, people went to remote work, and remote work people aren't coming back for the most part. So there's about 30% in both those major cities of empty office buildings right now. And my understanding is in like San Francisco, they're looking to convert those into, some sort of living space, everyday living space, like condos, apartments, et cetera, and turn them from office buildings to people who will live, because maybe they would work downtown or support the downtown economy there. Do you guys have products that can fit that and help with maybe some of those retrofitting? Because some of the buildings are really old; they're 30 or 40 years old.
Yeah, two comments to that. I mean, one is retrofit. Yeah, we do all kinds of retrofit. It's really, really common. Somebody comes in and does a full, I'd say probably 30% of our work. It's taken, you get good bones in a building, and you rip the envelope off and retrofit it. And doing that, your energy upgrades, natural light upgrades, etc. So we do lots of that. The other thing you touch on there is residential. And most of what we've done, we do, office, white collar workspace, and the push there, it's productivity and recruitment, trying to make great workspace for employees. Blue collar workspace, factories, absolutely works great in it. Sports facilities, large spaces, sports facilities, performance spaces, concert theater spaces. Daylighting in them, spectacular rinks. Sacramento Kings practice facility, Toronto Raptors practice facility have natural lighting that we've done in it.
Wow.
So schools, education, students learn way better under natural light.
Oh, bet.
That's most of what we do. But residential, we have a few really cool residential projects. On the value proposition residential, we don't do like single residential. It's and it's where we are right now. It's just a lot of work to sell a single residence. We have some architects' houses and things we've done, and I'm building a summer house right now that has our daylighting in it, but it's not a line of business for us really. But we have some projects that, one of them comes to mind. I think it's 10 Chelsea is the address, New York City, Highline District, New York City. It's small, small apartments, right?
Oh, wow.
And they're not cheap in Manhattan, if you know what I mean. Well, you'd know that better than I would. I live out in the middle of nowhere in a small place, but you'd understand that.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that movie.
And put natural light in a small space, feels bigger. They have privacy issues. You're crammed in downtown. You got privacy issues. What happens is you build small rental space. It's got to be small. You're in a city. It's just got to be. And what happens? The blinds will go down for privacy reasons. You lose your natural light. You start feeling pretty crammed in. So architects designing these, multi-unit high-rise residential and learning how to use natural light in the right spaces, in your active spaces in them. And it's a whole difference. And natural light, look, when people you go look at real estate, you go, oh, great, look at the natural light in it. It's just natural light. Study I saw, good natural light in a residential space, it sells or rents for 10 to 15% more.
Wow.
And it doesn't cost you 10 to 15% more to put it in there. So it's
Wow.
a huge value proposition to developers.
Yeah, a good investment for the long term. What do you see the future of your business going to? I mean, obviously, green and solar technologies and industries are going to keep excelling. It seems like we're moving towards that thing where they're just becoming more and more popular. What do you see the future of your industry or your business going to here?
We are, big tailwinds for us right now, business wise. Right. So, building code, can't build an all glass building envelope unless you use our glass. That's cool. More and more architects are catching on to that. Architects and developers, building owners catching on to that. So there's a tailwind for us. The whole drive towards green. I'm a big believer. My PhD is in solar energy. I'm a big believer in green. Now, let me qualify that. The Greta Thunberg, let's screech and say there's panic green. No, thanks. Building better buildings, natural light, lower energy bills, sensible, renewable energy that's cheaper than other energy. Thumbs up, right? So we got those tailwinds. Well, we got the other, the other one. I don't mean to be too disparaging about people that believe in or think it's emergency, but it's not the way I see the world. But either way, our solution is good for them. Natural light. The other tailwind for us is more and more organizations. Well, the world's more competitive. You want to build a building and you want to build a sports facility that's great. A university, basketball facility. You want to build a school. It works better. That human side. Go back 40 years ago, people barely cared. They just put up buildings the same way we built them.
They threw asbestos in them. They're like, yeah, it'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. We're good. She's all good as long as you get in there. That expectation that when you walk in a building, it's going to be a great building. You got employees in a building. When you walk into a building, the building I'm in, which is I'm actually sitting here in 45 Drive's computer company's head office here, and recruiting. It's everything. It's all about your people. They walk into our building and they go, "Wow, this is nice." And it's not nice because you try to impress by putting in marble or gold leaf. It's nice because it's a truly nice building. We have actually two secrets to it. Natural light is number one. Number two is fresh air. We do 4 to 5 times the normal amount of fresh air. There's all kinds of research that says if you let people sit in a normal amount of CO2 with normal ventilation rates, you dumb them down. They get sleepy. They get slow. They don't work as well. We pay people to come in here and be smart. So we don't want to dumb them down. So natural light, fresh air, you create a better building, employees more productive. They appreciate working there, gives you a competitive edge. So yeah, and it's it's a really large potential market we're in. We're a pioneer in it, and we're an interesting pioneer because I said we've got this long incubation period where we got it right. So it's just a really cool time for us. So I'm going to grow this thing, and we're just having a blast. It's like great fun, great industry. Buildings are exciting. You see these buildings, you walk into them and you go, wow. And when the owners and the occupants go, wow, it's nice.
And in a world where, we have this big revision that's been done with people staying home, or what I referred to earlier as, it's Tuesday, the brain's gone. But, people doing they're working for home and remote work. That's the word I was looking for. Getting people back to buildings and buildings that they're going to enjoy and that are beautiful, and that sunlight. Like I said, I'm tuning in with my life is how important sunlight is, because, with the rework, or technically I've been working at home since 2004. You get dark, and sometimes I think I've probably suffered some depression for not having enough vitamin D. And it just makes all the difference in the world. And if you want to get people back from the staying home and doing the remote work thing, building good buildings and having healthy buildings can make a difference. When I had most of my companies were brick and mortar back in the day, I was notorious for renting C-class buildings because they were cheap and we could expand through them very quickly because they were usually empty. But there are employees that sometimes suffered and got sick. I think there's a thing called getting sick from
sick building syndrome.
Sick building syndrome. There you go.
Yeah, and I think it's a combination of light and air are the two dominant things in it. And funny you talk about that. When I started Advanced Glazings, we're in pretty third world space. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm poor church mouse, and you do what you can. And I just think we moved into our first daylighted building first well daylighted building would have been 2007 when we moved in, or early 2008, and it's just dramatic. What it did to our employees and how much better I felt when I was in it. We got to get you some material. You got to find your own contractor for it, but we'll get your house, we'll get your studio naturally lighted, and we'll get you fixed up, Chris.
There you go. I had a couple employees that were getting sick from the fluorescent light. And probably some other things in the building. I remember one building we rented was so old, it had a giant, huge lead wall that I think a dentist's office had put in. And I remember going downstairs and looking at this lead wall, and they were removing it for all the obvious reasons. But it was crazy, and I'm like, that's been in this building? Okay, whatever. Explains why the rent's so cheap. But no, it's I've seen employees get sick. I've seen them, they hate the lighting on the wall. Some rooms are darker than others, or they always want a Windows office. So everyone's always complaining for those. So this is really important stuff. What are some advice to other entrepreneurs out there, people in the audience that are aspiring or struggling, or just entrepreneurs like myself? What's some advice you give to entrepreneurs on how to, you clearly had a vision for this company and stuck it out through a long time before it finally became popular to be green?
Well, you know what? It's a couple things. Number one, you have to have a vision as something that's, you got to solve people's problem.
Mm-hmm. There
right?
you go.
And that's clear. I won't go into that because everybody talks about that and they know that. You got to solve people's problems. How you do it. If you're just driven by money, it's a tough road to hoe, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll tell you, a real business, and we're in one. We're creating our own market segment, right? And do a change in the world, and the way people think of buildings and whatever. It's hard, but it's a people thing, right? Mm-hmm. And when you think of what you do as an entrepreneur, the way I look at it, it's bringing people together. It's understanding and having empathy for people in your market segment. What's their working life, or other life, if it's consumer or whatever else. What's their life like? How can you get better understanding that and figuring out how to communicate with them. Mm-hmm. On the other side, you have your workforce. Okay. And you look at that and you go, you need people to do the work. Otherwise, you're self-employed. You're not an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And you look at that and you got to set up a true win-win situation that works for everybody. Everybody needs to come out of it feeling like they got a fair deal. Thing. And your employees have to want to come to work, and your customers have to want to come buy from you. Your investors want to come invest in you. Your suppliers, don't be too hard on your suppliers. They're a partner in what you do too. This partnership, and you can get it if you do it right. And this is the word culture, and it just become really big as we grow. And I wish everybody says, wish I knew what I knew now when I started. But it's about culture, and it's setting it up. And we do something, we call them DNA documents.
Oh, really?
And as we grow, and the DNA, the idea that there's a code that determines all the decision making. The decision making determines the material. We have something that's ethical guidelines is our people DNA. It's everything you need to know to make a decision in these organizations that's aligned with everything else we do, aligned with the health of the organization, and aligned with your best interest. We have a bunch of other things. We have, and we get down to very specific things. We got something called project DNA. So, projects, development projects, marketing projects, anything that's not operations, it's projects. How do you get projects done and get them done fast and effectively and have fun doing it and want to come back and do another one? We have our set of guidelines, went through best practice, extracted. We train people very, very heavily in that. We are also, I talk about working at home. And again, everybody has a different view on it. And I started working home when I started Advanced Glazings. My first 6 months before I started, it was market research and financing it and everything else. And I worked out of home. And I guess I'm a social person or something like that. I couldn't wait for my wife to get home from work. The isolation I felt was just awful. We hire people who see the world that way. And we want people that want to come to work. We love the synergies you get. People got to learn how to sit down, shut up, and get their work done, right?
Yeah,
You got to be productive. But there's this inspiration you get as a group, and this alignment you get, this reinforcement you get when people work together and they get common values. And those common values are part of what we codify. We hire for it and we write it down and keep people aligned. You come to work, the group runs. The other thing we teach, a great workplace is, it's great to have good building and that good to have good work to do, decent paycheck, but it's determined by the people around you, whether you like coming to work or not. So it's no fun working with assholes. So don't be an asshole. We teach everybody that. They do an orientation set 2 hours with me.
Don't be an asshole.
The company is you. So I paraphrase it, don't be an asshole, but that's basically it. It's like having good people around to just treat with respect. You don't have to like everybody. Treat them with respect. You come into a workplace where everybody is treated with respect, people will get to like the workplace.
There you go. I love that concept, the DNA of a company, the DNA of projects. I've never really thought about it from that angle, but it kind of gives it that central formation by which everything evolves or expands from that. And
with no micromanagement, there's nothing worse. You bring people in to make decisions and drive the company forward. Nothing worse than going back and saying, I know you worked your arse off and you did everything could to make the best decision, but that was really stupid and it sucks. Right? So give them the tools so they can make great decisions. Then they get autonomy, and then the place just runs great, right? And they're happy. They got autonomy. They got respect for the people around them, and it just clicks and it works great. We're between the organizations. We have about 450 people now, and it just runs. The vast majority we do our surveying and everything else inside. We got scores that beat all the tech guys that got the foosball tables and everything else. We beat them and by a long shot in most of our surveys. So
there you go.
So.
There you go. So quick speed round here of just some fun stuff. Which is better, Rush or Nickelback?
Rush.
Rush. This is a Canadian thing, folks, for those of you who don't know. And
that's my vintage there too, eh?
Oh. There you go. I'm a big Rush fan too. Huge Rush fan, actually. And then but I just want a confirmation of my own bias. So that was easy setup. And then is Trailer Park Boys not the greatest TV show that Canada's ever produced?
Oh, Trailer Park Boys. I love it. Let me just throw you a little thing in here. We their production company. They produce on our computers from 45 drives.
Oh, do they?
So wow. Yeah, and they're down the road. We're Nova Scotia, Canada. For people who don't know Nova Scotia, we are those old flat Earth things where the elephants hold up the Earth and the water comes over the edge. That's where we are in North America, right? We're right in the edge. But Trailer Park Boys is Halifax, and which is about 4 hours drive from here, and it's Nova Scotia culture, and we love it. I just absolutely love the show.
I love the show too. They're kind of running their own thing, I think, right now. They're kind of keeping it going on the internet or something, or on TikTok. I see it. So it's great. I used to have people some of my friends back in the day used to call me Ricky, and I'm just like, seriously, am I that bad? And they're like, yeah.
Oh.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show, Doug. Give us your .com so people can find you on the interwebs, please.
Sure. Advancedglazings.com. Okay.
There you go.
Protocase.com and 45drives.com.
There you go. Well, it's been wonderful having the show and very insightful and inspiring for other entrepreneurs that want to take their vision and go on a journey that you've definitely been successful on.
Thank you very much, Chris. It was a pleasure.
There you go. And pleasure is all mine, sir. Also, to my audience, our most pleasurable, brilliant audience that I can't suck up ever to enough, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, youtube.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss, and check out that TikTok. We're trying to be cool over there. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. And we'll see you guys next time.